Welcome to another fireside chat. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Second Amendment and, for lack of a better term, the zeitgeist of the times. It's 2012, and I think I've explained in previous videos that one of the main reasons I make these videos is for my future grandchildren. But the Second Amendment is coming up in our culture again, as it does occasionally. Usually what happens is something bad will happen in the United States, and then the politicians will be able to get enough people kind of whipped into a frenzy that they can make some laws and ban certain things. So what is the Second Amendment? And given that I'm making this for people that haven't been born yet, they may never know what that is. They may not know that the United States had a constitution or anything like that, or why all of these things were and why we cared about it. Well, the United States was founded a long, long time ago, and when they founded it, they decided that given human history, it'd be good to set limits on the things that government can do to people, and limits on the power that government has. Because human society and humans in general have not always done the greatest job when it comes to governing each other. And of course, government being what it is, it's composed of people who want to rule other people. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in government. They want to be the big chief, and that's just their nature. Now, the founders of our country, knowing that the way people are and have always been, knew that eventually our government had the potential of turning nasty and of behaving badly. And so that's what the Constitution's about. It's supposed to prevent that. And predictably so, the people who run government do not like having limits on their power, and they have chipped away at the Constitution to the point now that it is more or less worthless. It means nothing, and it's not even worth the paper that it's written on. The Second Amendment was an amendment to the Constitution. And by all the reading I've done, the reason they put that amendment in there, and it basically gives American citizens the right to keep and bear arms. And the people who want more government power and more government control have done everything they can to weaken that and try to say, well, it doesn't mean that people can have guns. It means that the government can have guns. It doesn't mean the people can have guns. Or it means that they have to have a militia and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And they try to parse their way out of the idea that individuals can own firearms. And I would expect them to do that because, again, they wouldn't be in government if they didn't want to tell you what to do. Why should people have guns? Is it because they want to go out and shoot Bambi? Is that what the people who started the country were worried about, that our government wouldn't want people to go out hunting and to be able to feed themselves and this and that? Is that why we had the Second Amendment? No. Is it so that, you know, if our government can't protect us from an outside invader, is that why we have guns? Well, maybe. Maybe that's part of it. But if you look at the Declaration of Independence and all the other things that were written at that time, and if you look at the history that was going on at the time that they wrote it, this country was founded by rebelling against England, and they would not have been able to rebel without firearms. And the Founding Fathers, knowing what they knew about the nature of government and the nature of people who want to be in government, knew that they would try to chip away at the Constitution and basically make it a moot point. What is left when you get a government that is run by people who are frankly out of control? The only thing that's really left, and the only way you can overturn that, is if you have an armed populace. And oh my God, I know that just makes me a horrible person for saying that. And I'm a kook, because my God, you know, how is a bunch of people having shotguns and rifles, how are they possibly going to fight against an F-16 or a tank or any of that? And you know, you got a point. It am difficult to fight against the United States Army with small arms and things like that. But it isn't impossible. You should Google Afghanistan, Google Iraq. Another thing you could Google would be the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, and see what happened when some people with rifles and small arms confronted the most powerful army in the world. Here's my thinking on it. The Second Amendment is there basically as our last-ditch hedge against tyrannical governments and against people wanting to basically turn government to their own purposes and wreck life for the rest of us. And that does happen from time to time. Got some nice coffee going here. It'll be just a little bit. And this isn't really, to me, it's not about a party. It's not about one party versus another party or any of that. I really don't care about the political parties, because they basically have accepted one or two things that make them all the same. They're just different sides of the same coin, and they are basically have the same approach, just different degrees of it. I'm going to set it off here to cool, or to settle a little bit. Put the lid on. I'm going to hit it just a little bit so the grounds settle out. So we just had an election in this country, and again, the person who was elected doesn't matter. The party that was elected doesn't matter. None of that really matters, because my intended audience is not 2012, it's 2050. We just had somebody elected, and the big zeitgeist in 2012 was, it's the evil bankers, and this is a worldwide phenomenon. The evil bankers are keeping everyone down, and if it weren't for these evil bankers, we'd all be rich. And you know, they're wrecking all of our plans, and our planned economies in Europe aren't working because the evil bankers are doing us wrong. Does the word evil banker, does that sound like anything else to you? Have you heard that before? Hello? Anybody awake in there? Anybody thinking? Anybody alive? The dominant political thinking right now is that the 1% aren't paying their fair share and they're evil, and if it weren't for the 1%, we'd all be sipping gin and tonics in the Caribbean on our yachts. And it's the 1% who are keeping us down. Have you heard anything like that before in history? Does that ring a bell to you at all? The evil 1% are keeping us down. The greedy bankers are keeping us down. You heard that before anywhere? Hello, Bueller? Bueller? And of course now, I know you're saying, well, there's no way that the American people would buy into that, because clearly that's just more scapegoating for government incompetence, and it's a power grab, and clearly the powers that are being were just trying to, you know, get reelected and say basically anything, and clearly they were power grabbing. And I wish you were right, but that worked. And it's 2012, and the American people, not the German people, not the Russians, the American people elected the guy who was saying that stuff gleefully. They loved it. People ate it up. You know, our economy right now is just in the crapper. It's horrible. And he was able to say successfully that, well, I've been president for 4 years, but I inherited this mess. None of this is my fault. The other guy screwed things up so bad that, you know, it's going to take me longer than 4 years to fix it. And also, it's the greedy bankers. It's their fault. Now, does that sound a little bit like a 5-year plan to you? Does that sound, oh, I don't know, familiar at all? When I was in college, I took a bunch of anthropology classes because, frankly, the subject just fascinates me. And there's this idea of kinship. And basically, to sum it up in one sentence, if there's a tribe and the tribe kills a woolly mammoth, it's everybody's woolly mammoth. And we, you know, back in ancient times, we were all living in very small groups, fairly well isolated, and they had a point in that, you know, if all the members of the tribe are there and everybody contributes to the hunt, then everybody should get a share of the meat. And and we're hardwired that way, because when you live with 30 people and those 30 people have to hunt together, and there's maybe one woolly mammoth, and you have to kill the woolly mammoth and cooperate, then it makes sense to set your society up that way. And we lived that way for so long until somebody figured out that you could plant a seed, that we're hardwired to have the idea that if somebody has more than me, they took it from me. That's how humans are, and that's never going to change. You have a political party, say, and you're the Marsitarians, say. You're from Mars. If you want to get elected, you're going to have to appeal to a broad range of people, and you're going to have to make an emotional appeal that they will be able to understand without thinking. What you want to appeal to is the idea of kinship. And if you do that, and you also find a scapegoat for all their problems and say, look, it's not your fault you're poor. You don't have any role in the misfortunes of your life. Everything about your life, that was all because of somebody else. An evil 1%er came along and is keeping you down. If you say that today, you will be elected. Because you're able to appeal to things that are inborn in our nature. And those things will never change. You will always be able to get elected by telling people that it's not their fault they're poor. And we're all in this together, and somebody is taking more than their fair share, and they're evil. So now let's circle back to the Second Amendment. Given that there will always be evil people in the world, and given that they're smart enough to figure out what I have, that if you want to get elected, or if you want to rise to power, all you have to do is appeal to the idea of kinship and create a scapegoat. Given that none of that is going to change, we have to have a last-ditch way of preventing that from happening. And what you need to do is you need to go and look at the history of the world and see what happens every single time one of these dictators decides to come along and be successful. Number one, it's economic hard times typically. Number two, they're promising you the world. Number three, and they've named a scapegoat. And number four, by the way, we're going to take care of you, so why don't you just go ahead and turn in all your guns. Again, If you don't think that small arms are effective against modern military, please Google Iraq and Afghanistan. So anyway, in 2012, I just think that human nature hasn't changed. We still fall for the same crap that we always fell for, and you can still get most people to go along with bad stuff if you promise them the right things. And because of that, because they're not changing and we're not changing, we need to have a mechanism in place so that if they get out of hand, we can deal with them. And that's what the Second Amendment's for. Now, having said all of that, I would absolutely hate to see anything come to needing to exercise that Second Amendment right to put things right. And we're nowhere near any of that right now, I don't think. But that's the last thing you want, is to have to go into rebellion, because that literally takes the life out of generations. Generations of people die in the fighting, and then you've got generations of lost potential. Because instead of going out and developing skills and pushing forward science and building businesses and all those sorts of things, you're spending your time fighting. So the last thing anybody would ever want is to end up in a situation where we had to exercise that right. That being said, I still want the right to bear arms in case we need it someday.